Hello friends, we are going to see the Unit 1 of IE and IFS, Indian Economy and Indian Financial System, which deals about an overview of Indian economy. Well, let us see what are the ingredients of this topic. Number 1 is evolution of Indian economy, basic characteristics of Indian economy in the pre-British period, economy till 2008 and after 2008. 2008 is a very important area where the fall of Lehman Brothers, and due to this fall we even had this great economic depression. We call it as the subprime crisis, and the structural changes in Indian economy. Of late, what has happened and what are the after effects of COVID. So these things will be dealt in this chapter. Well, the chapter commences with the tribute to Mr. Agnes Madison. So Agnes Madison is a British economist who throws light on the wealth of India during the period of British and the amount of plunder Britain did for India, and due to which the GDP of India got eroded. He would have highlighted all these things. Once if you Google about Mr. Agnes Madison, you will land up at this particular YouTube video where he is Mr. Gurumurthy. Gurumurthy sir is an auditor based out in Chennai, and he is affiliated towards Bharatiya Janata Party, and he speaks about the world economy of India from 1750 to 1900 to the crowd of IIT Madras. If you have time, just listen to this video. He would have highlighted major data points pointed out by Mr. Agnes Madison. So Mr. Agnes Madison says a vital point. In 1000 AD, half of the world's global GDP is contributed by two countries. Number 1 is India, number 2 is China. So what happened after that? From 1000 AD, if we come forward to 1600, China's contribution to global GDP was 29%, whereas India's contribution was 23%. 100 years from that point of time, India's contribution became 24.4, and after that the actual decline happened because British colonialism plundered the wealth of India and deindustrialized India. So India's share declined to 16.1%, and by 1947, when actually the British people left India, the contribution of India towards global GDP is only 3%. Now the reason for this is there was a near stagnation in growth, famine and drought, disease outbreaks, and all these things made India a poor country by the time Britishers left our country. So 1947 and 48 range, it was a huge challenge for our Indian government to start things from scratch. After the independence, many reforms were formed, major 5-year plans were drafted, things incentivizing the manufacturers were introduced. Let us deal with them. Let us deal on those things one by one. Now let us see how World Bank classifies economies. World Bank classifies economies into 4 major categories. The 4 is actually 3 with a subdivision into it. It is like low, medium, high. You can relate it to the Indian Railways seating structure. In the medium, again there are 2 types: lower middle income and higher middle income. There is a particular range. There is a from point and there is a to point. If the per capita income, which is called PCI, of a country falls in this particular range, World Bank characterized it as a low, medium or high. Keeping in that range concept in mind, any range between $996 to $3,895 will make a country as a lower middle income country. And India's per capita income in 2019 was $1,891. Now what is this per capita income? Per capita income is total income of a country divided by total population. So this will give a clear picture of what a per capita income actually means. And there is another terminology which this particular part of the syllabus throws to you people. Though in terms of purchasing power parity, India is the 3rd largest economy in the world, our PCI is 1891 only. Now let us see what purchasing power parity is. Purchasing power parity is a measure of comparison between 2 economies. Say for example, now when we see in the news, $1 is equal to 80 INR, 80 rupees. Now this is currency equivalent of $1. Now I am taking a product, a good, For example, onion. Now I can buy 1 kilogram of onion in India for rupees 50. Now to buy the same 1 kilogram of onion in United States, I need to give $1. Now with respect to the currency conversion range, 1 US dollar is equal to 80 INR, whereas with respect to a product and the purchasing power of the product, $1 is equal to 50 INR. Here the product is a mere onion. Now there is a basket of products which are used by economists, and the purchasing power of these products between two economies is compared by this purchasing power parity. You can Google for this particular terminology called Big Mac Index. If you can Google this and get the data about this Big Mac Index, you can very well understand about this bucket of products and the purchasing power for these products in different economies. Low per capita income is mainly caused by high levels of poverty, unemployment and illiteracy. Now these three things are interlinked to each other. Because of poverty, people are not getting education. Because of not getting education, they are not getting good jobs. So this is a vicious cycle, my dear friends. Now, low per capita real income, rapid population growth, high rate of unemployment, underemployment and disguised employment, excessive reliance on primary sector is a vicious cycle of poverty and rising unemployment. Now, these are the reasons why India is still in that lower middle income category. Now here, the generic English words are easily understood by you, like low per capita real income. Now what is a real income? Real income is actual income minus inflation. Whenever you see the word real, say for example, they used to call real GDP, real income. Here real GDP means nominal GDP minus inflation. In economy, whenever you see a word called real, it is indirectly meaning there is a word called inflation is also linked to it. When you subtract inflation from any nominal figure, you will arrive on the real figure. Now you know unemployment, you know underemployment also, but there is this new terminology called disguised unemployment. What is this disguised unemployment? Disguised means putting a mask, camouflaging or pretending to something like that. So how this dictionary word disguised is used in this term, let me explain you. Now disguised unemployment is an area where the total productivity remains same, but number of people employed will increase. Say for example, there is a town called Modasa in Gujarat. As a banker, I lived there for 1 year. This town is in the Aravalli district between the Rajasthan and Gujarat border. So if you are some banker who is posted there, you can very well relate to me. Let us imagine Modasa town has 50 people. Here 10 people are employed and 40 people are unemployed. So here you can very well say there is huge level of unemployment in that particular city. Now these 10 people, what they are doing is they are manufacturing 10 t-shirts, and for manufacturing these 10 t-shirts they get 500 rupees per day. So the owner, the Malik, will spend 500 rupees for these 10 guys, meaning his daily salary outflow is 5000 rupees. Now let me do some trick here. Let me make 50 people as employed by giving job to this additional 40 people who were non-employed. Now the unemployed position will become 0. I can say the Modasa city is a city free from unemployment. Now let us see the figure here. These 50 people again make the same 10 t-shirts, and each of them are getting rupees 100. and the owner is getting a salary outflow of 5,000 rupees. Here, though the unemployed is 0, the total productivity remains the same. These guys are making the 10 t-shirts. Earlier also 10 t-shirt, now additional 40 people after them joining also it is 10 t-shirts. But the city management will say we have eradicated unemployment. This situation is called disguised unemployment. Hope I am clear to you. So these are the characteristics which are reason for the low middle income for our country. India's macroeconomic aggregates published by RBI as per September 15, 2021 states that our population is 135.5 crores and GDP is rupees 1,45,680. This is called per capita GDP. Again, when per capita GDP comes, it means per capita GDP is equal to total GDP divided by total population. These formulas, my dear friends, make a note of it, because you may even get problematic questions to find the per capita GDP given the population is this and total GDP is this. So this which comes in the numerator, which comes in the denominator, if you people know this, you can easily crack those sums. And with respect to JAIIB, the questions can be formed with some 3-4 categories. Number 1 is stats. By stats I mean, see, population of India as per RBI publication dated September 15, 21 is what? It is 135 crores or 125 crores or 144 crores. Whenever numbers come with stats, they will ask the question. Next thing is persons. Now we have read about Mr. Agnes Madison. He is an economist, British economist. He would have said something about India. What they will do, that quote given by that person, they will mention that in the question and they will ask which scientist or which economist said this quote. They will give you 4 options in which Mr. Agnes Madison will also be there. Number 3, the common type of the problem which they can ask is, whenever a regulator gives any prediction, say for example, IMF, International Monetary Fund, predicted the growth rate of India as 4.5%. World Bank says that India belongs to the lower middle income group. Like that, regulators, World Bank, IMF, RBI or National Statistical Organization releases a figure. That figure will definitely come as one of the questions. With my experience in these 12 years of banking, I cleared my JAIIB in first class in 2014, 10 years back. Right from that time to this time, the question paper will definitely have one question based on this, either on statistics or persons or the regulator predictions. So if you can highlight these things, you can easily crack the exam. And once the theoretical classes are over, we can even supply you with mock question papers. Once you crack that mock question papers, you will get complete understanding over the subject. Now let's move to the next area, Indian economy in the British period. During the British colonialism, there were unilateral transfers of capital and raw materials to Britain. As I already said, British people ruled us because they want all our wealth to be transported back to Britain. They don't have an ideal thing of setting up a government ruling us for the benefits of Indians. They ruled us because they can loot items from India to Britain. Many people predicted the per capita income at different year times. Say example, Dadabhai Nehruji. Dadabhai Nehruji, many civil service aspirants would have known him. He is called as the grand old man of India. People even call him as Guruji to Mahatma Gandhi. So according to Dadabhai Nehruji, our per capita income is 142 rupees in 1948 at 49 prices. Why per capita income is stated here? Because World Bank classifies economies based on this per capita income. That is the reason why per capita income is being highlighted. Likewise, many economists like William Digby, Finlay Shiras, V.K.R.V. Rao, R.C. Desai were almost released the same kind of PCA values. Here, Atkinson's figure of 172 and Horney's figure of 158 were vitally important. Both Atkinson and Horney are renowned statisticians and economists. So these figures have a note because they will confuse you with options. Like Atkinson has said 158 and Horney has said 172, like that. So be very clear which economist predicted which per capita income. By 1947, it rose to 250. Now the second thing in the British period is, you can classify the British period into 3 different types. as per Agnes Madison's data, which states like it is early period, second phase and the third phase. Early period was from 1600. Now the importance of this 1600 year, that was the year when East India Company was founded. So East India Company was founded, where it was founded? Again, civil service aspirants can answer me easily. It was founded at Kolkata. So from 1600 to 1757, the early period, East India Company has only two goals. First goal is to procure raw materials and find a market for finished goods. They take our own raw materials and they sell it to our own people for a high price. Look at the tactics used by the British. And the second phase happened between 1757 to 1857. Again, 1857 is another important year. Sepoy Mutiny happened. Sepoy Mutiny can also be called as the first war of independence. During this particular area or the period, the revolt against the British has already started, because the British exploited us with their trade policies and land revenue policies. Many things like doctrine of lapse was introduced. Doctrine of lapse is, if a king do not have any son, what will happen? The kingdom has to be surrendered to the British. There were several occasions when the kings were giving birth to female offsprings only. Princes were born, no son was born. The king would have lost his fertility. During scenarios of that kind, what happened was, when the male child is not born to that king, that kingdom will automatically become one of the province of the British. Like this, rules, bad revenue policies and camouflage trade activities created agitation among Indians. Now the third phase started with Sepoy Mutiny, as I have already said. Now, the Mangal Pandey film, if you have seen, you could have easily understood the concept of what Sepoy Mutiny is. And if the Sepoy Mutiny, rightly called as First War of Independence, if it had been a really strong agitation against the British, instead of 1947, we would have got our independence in the year 1857, some 90 years before itself. So this is the third phase, after 1857 till the period of independence. Here, the wealth drain happened and westernization of Indian education system was seen. By the time, look at this line, by the time British withdraw, India had become a destitute economy. I said bad taxation system was introduced. How they introduced this? Zamindari, Mahalwari, Rayatwari systems. In Zamindari system, you know, there will be a big landlord called Zamindar. He will collect the taxes from the public. In Rayatwari system, directly the farmers will pay their land tax to the British. In Mahalwari system, Mahalwari is villages formed by same community of people. In that Mahalwari system, intermediary will be there. He is called as a middleman. The middleman will collect the tax amount from the farmer and he will remit to the British people. Via these three different systems, our farmers were excessively taxed, and this tax burden took away a major portion of the profit for the farmers. The Crown era, why we call it as Crown era is, after a particular time, after Sepoy Mutiny itself, East India Company was dissolved and India came under the direct rule of the British Crown. Here, what they did was, they did plain looting. Railway transportation was formed, but why it was formed? From the hinterland, the areas where you get actual minerals, you get actual wealth, connections were made to ports. Why for port cities they made the connection? Because if connection is made to the port city, they can take away the wealth via ship to England. Robert Clive, this guy introduced railways and postal in India for the benefit of the British people. He took enormous salary for whatever his daily routine is being done. So that exploitation is mentioned over this particular area. This is the bad phase of British rule, which is the fag end of the British rule, where plentiful amount of looting was carried out. Now because of this, we can able to compare the GDPs of India and UK in two different areas, in 1600 and in 1947. We should read this table in a reverse fashion to understand this. In 1600, India's GDP was $74,250 million, whereas UK's was $6,000 million only. The population of India was 13.5 crores, UK was 61.7 lakhs. If you divide by this GDP with the population, you will get the per capita GDP. Per capita GDP of India was 550, for UK was 974. Now years forward, now what happened in 1947? Our GDP was 2,55,000, whereas British become 3,14,000. Imagine from 74 to 2.5, we have hardly progressed only 4 times. But look at these people, from 6,000 to 3,14,000, they have progressed over 50 times. That's because of the loot which they did from the colonized countries. The colonized countries gave the wealth to the British. And population, our population increased to 41.4 crore. British population becomes somewhere around 5 crore. Now here see the per capita GDP, ours is 618, which is hardly some 68 points from our 1600 figures. Whereas for the British people, from 974, it went to 6361. Our economy after the independence can be classified into several years. 1951 to 1980, we call this as Hindu rate of growth. This Hindu rate of growth was coined by Professor Raj Krishna. So this is one area where you need to concentrate. A person is coining something, so huge chances of this becoming a question in JAIIB paper is evident. Professor Raj Krishna termed this 1951 to 1980, that particular 30-year period, as Hindu rate of growth, and there our growth in the economy was 3.5% and annual growth rate was 1.3 with respect to the per capita income. After that, the 80 to 90, we had economic buoyancy. Buoyancy means, see, this is a physics term. When you put a ball into a bucket of water, you will see a force. The water will give a force back to you. That is a reverse force. That is termed as buoyancy. Here the economic buoyancy is our economy bounced back in that 80 to 90 because higher government spending was seen for the infrastructure items, for education items. Our government did extreme spending, and the imports of capital goods and raw materials was more liberalized, so that we can do the manufactured product and again export them or use for the domestic consumptions. After 90, that was the time when LPG happened. LPG means liberalization, privatization and globalization. I love this particular photo where two great men are here. Mr. Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh, was the finance minister of country during that globalization stroke, and Bharat Ratna Narasimha Rao ji was the Prime Minister of India during that particular time. So these two gentlemen did this remarkable change of globalization, allowed foreign brands to invest in India, thereby creating multiple options to the end users. So the GDP growth during the 8th 5-year plan, where the actual globalization happened, was 6.7%. You can see the previous slide, it was around 3.5% only, 1951 to 1980. Whereas after globalization, it is 6.7%. During the 9th 5-year plan, it was 5.3%, and during the 10th 5-year plan, it was 7.6%. India witnessed 8.6% growth in GDP from 2002 to 2003 to 2006 to 2007, thus making us to be the second fastest growing economy after China. Now 2008 and after 2008, here the Lehman Brothers collapse, which I mentioned during the topic initiation. There was a huge recession, pay cuts, loss of jobs, especially in companies where the predominant client is a American company. So to recover that, RBI infused stimuli to 1.8 lakh crores, and this kind of stimuli was given even during the COVID time. While the economy recovered, fiscal deficits rose beyond the limit set by Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. FRBM Act, friends, please have a growth of this in Google. You can see, especially this act will be discussed during the time of interim budget speech by Honorable Finance Minister. Many states will say, the center is not giving the GST amount paid by my state back to me. This is one breach of FRBM Act, like that. So FRBM Act says the fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit means if your expense of a particular state exceeds the actual income, it means it is a deficit budget. And there is a one range till which this budget can go as deficit. That range is defined as a percentage of GDP. If a GDP is 100 crore, we can go till a percentage of that 100 crore. You cannot make the deficit itself an equivalent amount of the GDP. Though the economy recovered after 2008 and after COVID also, The fiscal deficit rose beyond the limit set by the FRBM Act. And during this period, after this 2008, we saw introduction of GST. This is by the BJP government, the NDA government during the first reign they did it. And IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. A company will borrow from the bank, and in NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal, they will go and say like, we are bankrupt sir, we cannot pay the debt. IBC was introduced in order to get the last penny out of the company for the benefit of the creditors. And corporate tax cuts were given. More than 30% tax was charged for corporates. It was reduced to around 22%. Demonetization, we all know it happened in 2016. So these changes and the COVID stimuli made an important structural change in the economy of India. After the pandemic hit, the growth itself became slow. It was declared as a pandemic by World Health Organization. Several factors were responsible for the high GDP contraction in India because of the strict lockdown. Many countries were affected like UK, US, Argentina, Italy. These are the most worst hit by the COVID, and GDP got restricted. It happened in several waves. The second wave's economic impact was 1/3 of the first, and the impact of the third wave was significantly lower than the first wave and second wave, thanks to Covaxin and Covishield. By the third wave came, almost majority Indians were insulated with these two vaccines. In India, the service sector was worst affected, and the area where the physical touch happens like retail trade, hotels, restaurants, air transportation, logistics, education were worst affected. And there was a decline in the labor market also because people migrated from urban area to rural area. I saw this as an open statement. There were many metro workers from cosmopolitan cities in Bangalore, Chennai. They were again migrating back to their own motherland, and there was more demand for Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment and Guarantee Act. We call this as 100 days payment scheme. Many bankers who are sitting in the cash can understand the pain of submitting the beneficiary the actual 100 days payment of Manrega. Your entire branch will be crowded during that particular time. Agriculture remained robust. Many state governments gave, though the lockdown was there, cultivation of the crops were happening parallelly, and recovery also happened in many sectors. 23.8% was the contraction, and recovery happened little by little, like 0.7% to 2.5%. And I can show you in terms of sectors. Now, mining, quarrying, electricity, gas, water supply or utility services were recovering, whereas trade, hotels, communication were still suffering. You can see the recovering percentage was poor even in the year 2021 to 22. Public administration defense had a resilient recovery, and because of these things, major effect was happened for the tertiary sector, where the services were a part of. Now, how we differentiate our sectors is, we have totally 5 different sectors. In that, these 3 major sectors were very important: primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Agriculture and allied sector, these belongs to the primary category. The word allied means poultry, fishing, all those things will come in the allied sectors. So here it is more of unorganized in nature. You cannot count or quantify it exactly. Forestry, mining, agriculture, everything comes in this primary sector. Anything that happens with the help of the plentiful natural resources, those things are put under the primary sector ambit. Secondary sector is the manufacturing sector. They collect the raw material from the primary sector and make them as finished goods. So small scale units, manufacturing units, they are a part of the secondary sector. And tertiary sector is service sector, where we have this banking, insurance, trade, communications. So Airtel, BSNL, Vodafone, Bank of Maharashtra, Bank of India, everything will form a unit of this tertiary sector. The service sector had largely replaced the industrial sector, and it now dominates the economy. Now, this is the GDP external factors happened due to FDI. In service sector, FDI happened to a lot. You can even see companies like ICICI Prudential, HDFC Ergo. HDFC is Indian company, Ergo is a foreign company. Like this, you can see Indian foreign tie-ups in the BFSI sector that has happened below because of our FDI allowance in the service sector. So Indian economy sector is classified based on the activity nature. In last slide I said we have 5 important sectors. Quaternary and quinary are a subset of these main 3 sectors. We can see about this in detail in the unit number 2.